Howdy folks, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and today for you folks, I have another brand new TTRPG video because today going to be diving into Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory, and I'm going to be talking about a vehicle today that you need to add to your Wrath and Glory campaign, and it actually makes sense when you kind of look at things under the magnifying glass. And most likely, this is a vehicle you don't know about, or really very few people probably know about. Now, most people, of course, they know about the legendary Land Raider, as well as many people know about vehicles like the Vindicator and the Predator and the Rhino. But this vehicle dates all the way back to the Horus Heresy, maybe even before the Horus Heresy, at least when you go through the lore. And I do believe its first appearance may have been even second edition Warhammer 40k. And today, folks, what I'm going to be talking about is the Saber Tank Hunter. Now, this is not to be confused with the Saber. It's like a Saber heavy assault tank. This is actually a different vehicle, and this predates even that vehicle, at least when it comes to actually being a vehicle within Warhammer 40k. But really quick, before I do a deep dive into the Saber Tank Hunter here, I want to take time. I want to plug my Patreon page because the Patreon page helps give this channel support. You know, I can look at things such as doing different types of content, things of that nature. Gives the channel a bit of a budget. But with that being said, link in the video description down below. Check out my Patreon page. I do post stuff from time to time, kind of give people little snippets of things, videos that are going to be coming up. But anyway, for those who really can't do Patreon or, you know, whatever, everybody can do this. It's completely free. Support my YouTube channel. Like, comment, subscribe, share. If that all helps me out, it all helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, the whole 9 yards, and it helps me gain viewership and lets me know people are interested in this type of content. So now let's dive into the meat and the potatoes of today's video, which is going to be the Saber Tank Hunter. Now, just to give a little history of the Saber Tank Hunter, or at least what's out there for lore, the lore of the Saber Tank Hunter is a little foggy in itself. It definitely dates back to the Horus Heresy, maybe even slightly before the Horus Heresy. But the thing to understand is during the Horus Heresy is where these vehicles, these Saber Tank Hunters, would actually see their heyday. And that's mostly because of large armor formations. Essentially, Space Marine legions wanted a vehicle that was a specialized anti-tank vehicle. Basically, they wanted a hole puncher. Now, of course, it is unclear if it is related at all to the Vindicator. I actually want to believe it is related to the Vindicator, that, if you will, the R&D of these two vehicles were kind of neck and neck around the same time with each other. Mostly for two reasons. One, like I said a bit ago, with the Saber Tank Hunter, large armor formations. They needed a specialized hole puncher. With the Vindicator, on the other hand, lots of sieges went on during the Horus Heresy, even before the Horus Heresy, and the Vindicator definitely saw a lot of service in that time frame. Of course, even in the 41st millennium, the Vindicator still sees quite a bit of service. Now, with that being said, not 100% sure, but I would take a pretty good stab at saying the creators of the Saber Tank Hunter for Warhammer 40k was inspired by the German assault guns of World War II, such as the Jagdpanther here, which I think is very cool. You know, it's kind of a World War II turretless tank destroyer is kind of a World War II concept, but it still finds its way onto the battlefield as late as the 41st millennium. Now, with all that being said, it is built on the same STC template as the Rhino. Of course, the Predator is built from that template, the Rhino, the Razorback, the Vindicator, the Whirlwind, so many vehicles. Basically, it's the primary template that the Space Marines use to build their vehicles. Of course, they make modifications to the said designs, such things as adding additional armor, changing firepower, changing the internal layout, so on and so forth. Now, going by the lore, the original armament is actually a heavy laser destroyer. So basically, it's just a big, beefy laser cannon. And essentially, even though the person who built this model put the laser destroyer generator on the outside, the laser destroyer generator is actually on the inside. So it's really interesting that they built the vehicle this way. But hey, it still looks really cool, and I think it's actually really nice detail that the modeler did here for the heavy laser destroyer. Now, with that being said, there would also be another variant that would actually feature the Vanquisher battle cannon. Now, with that being said, my earliest encounter, if you will, of the Saber tank hunter, it was actually armed with just a regular battle cannon, kind of like what you'd find on a Lehman Russ battle tank. But I think because of time, they've added new weapons, things of that nature. They've changed the lore so that way it was either the heavy laser destroyer, which originally wasn't there in Warhammer 40k, and then the variant would be changed to the Vanquisher battle cannon because once again it would be later added to the game. Now, with that being said, the original armament, like I said, it's the heavy laser destroyer, and the Vanquisher battle cannon essentially was replacement armament. You got to understand that these vehicles see combat, they take damage, and the weapons themselves get damaged. And if the weapon system gets damaged, based upon the time frame, repairability is near impossible. So essentially, it was quite common for vehicles to find different armaments, especially vehicles that used a heavy laser destroyer, which is actually going to be this little snippet here is going to roll into a future video that I have planned. Now, with that being said, the Saber Tank Hunter shares many of the upgrades, pretty much all the upgrades that the Vindicator shares. Smoke grenade launchers, pintle-mounted storm bolter, including a storm shield. Pretty much anything that you can find on a Vindicator, you will find or could find on a Saber Tank Hunter. Now, when it comes to users, there was a few different chapters that's noted on the wiki page. The Dark Angels is one of them, but one of them I want to highlight of the chapters that they show there is the Blood Angels. The Blood Angels apparently is a noted user of the Saber Tank Hunter in the 41st millennium. And with that being said, what's interesting about that is the Absolvers from the Wrath and Glory TTRPG is actually a subchapter of the Blood Angels. So I feel that it is actually more than likely that the Absolvers may actually have a few of these in their arsenal. Not a whole lot, maybe 3 at most, I would guess. And with that being said, I would probably guess that most of them have the Vanquisher battle cannon just because of age, the vehicle C battle, and actually the the Absolvers actually has limited resources if you go by the lore of Warhammer 40k Wrath and Glory. Now, to use this vehicle in Wrath and Glory, what would the vehicle data sheet look like? Well, unfortunately, I can't publish that one, but essentially, it's actually already published if you just do a little bit of work. So essentially, there is a source book called Church of Steel for Wrath and Glory, and it adds a bunch of new vehicles to Wrath and Glory. Everything from Imperium to Orcs, Astartes, the whole 9 yards. So essentially, at its core, it's a Vanquisher. Or sorry, not a Vanquisher, a Vindicator at its core. And realistically, the main change between the vehicles is the armament. So essentially, use the stats and the upgrades for the Vindicator, but change the primary armament to either the Laser Destroyer, which is part of the Astra Militarum, or the Imperial Guard section, or the Vanquisher Battle Cannon, which is also in the Imperial Guard section. It's just a simple weapon swap. Now, there's probably a point swap there because there is something about points in there, but I really don't take a lot in the way of points. Of course, it might be like a 2-3 point difference, but whatever. It doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, when you go putting this together and you decide to go use one in your campaign, and your players are like, "Hey, what's a Saber tank hunter?" and you go explaining it to them, and or even possibly show them this video, you'll look pretty smart because hey, you know something they didn't know. Anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up today's video at that. Hopefully you enjoyed this video about the Saber tank hunter, and hopefully I'll see you again for the next video. Anyway, folks, once again, thank you very much for tuning in, and have yourself a wonderful day.